but I wanted to believe in it. All right, so we're jumping right in here. We have the Rune versus Haven. We have Keishi and friends on Rune, and we have CPV on Haven. So this is an interesting rune deck. This is Ginger Rune. Have you had much experience playing with or playing against Ginger Rune, Aka?
More playing against Ginger Rune rather than playing with. It's a very expensive deck. I'm not willing to commit this early, but if it becomes a staple in the meta, obviously as a competitive player, I will go for it. But from playing against it, it's very menacing. It reminds me of the Daria playstyle, but combined with the neutral rune of yore, where you would just have this powerful mid-game options with Illusionist and Nectar, and you would snowball into Felices for the finish. This just takes a while, but if you establish enough presence and survive until turn 9 and get a rune with a ginger, sorry, with at least 2 bodies, yeah, that could be game winning.
So one of the things about Ginger Rune that I think is making it as powerful as it is now is just the fact that Bahamut rotated out. It's hard to deal with the board once they get it. Like, unless you have like a crazy turn with a whole bunch of Acceleradiums at plus a Magna Legacy. I can't really think of too many other ways to full clear a board like that.
Yeah, the only other options I can think about
Is
are
Dragon Rend
cards
Quake.
like Momo, possibly 2 Momos, but that's very unlikely too. Do you have the bans? Kind of curious of what they decided to ban.
Yeah, so um let me find it. I have it here somewhere. The Rune was banned off of CPV, and Sword was banned off of Keishi and Friends.
Thank you. We also see the addition of Abomination Awakened. Do you see it being activated often?
I think the big thing about Abomination Awakened is that the presence of it just being on the field kind of demands that it gets answered. Just because the threat of it evolving and auto evolving by itself, and the threat of it being a 6/6 is just so dangerous.
It also requires a lot of expertise with the deck yourself, because you need to recognize if it's possible for your opponent to activate it or not. And showing their expertise, CPV chose not to deal with it because they were very comfortable that they would not be able, that Keishi and his friends were not able to activate it, which shows just smart play. And now they're slowly starting to deal with it again, because again they recognized that it was gonna pop. So very, very well played.
I love that gruff Mountaineer and Captain there. That's anytime I get to see that card be played, I get a little happy.
You forgot the voice line.
Mm,
No.
no guts, no glory.
You gotta cosplay that as they play it. No guts.
So do you think we're gonna see the Hind here? Maybe in Bane mode just to pop these two and get some card draw.
What other options do they have?
They have okay, so that is what they're going for. They have a Cudgel in their hand, they have a Summit Temple, they have a Mariah Iconium, and they have Jean Beacon of Hope.
They chose not to evolve, recognizing that there's probably better targets to evolve, like that tea time.
Yeah, and if you do evolve, actually, you open yourself up for another Gruff. Though I think actually the Gruff is not invulnerable to Bane.
No, it takes can't be damage, so it takes 0 damage, which is considered to be damage for the Bane mechanic.
This would be a disgusting Felice if there was one in the hand. Luckily for CPV, there isn't one. They do have that Hector, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was actually gonna call this Bollocks is very valuable. That was remind yourselves that this was a token from Stella. Just shows how powerful Stella can be sometimes and why she's such a good addition for Rune.
Yeah, she keeps your hand full for this deck too, which is really important. She's a 2-drop that can draw you more than one card. It doesn't really cost you anything.
And if you get cards like Pollux or Star Phoenix, those could be come in clutch to kill like big bodies with low health, or in the case of Pollux, deal with the Serenian Hind, or maybe even a Heavenly Knight.
Yeah, it's a big card, man. Pollux can really put in work. So here there's 4 play points left, but no plays you're too happy to make. Maybe we see this Gemstone Carapace get played and just draw 2 cards by playing out the Summit Temples. Or maybe you just see this Tempo Cudgel get played just to fight for the board a little bit.
This group is proving to be very hard to deal with. It's always demanding an evolve point, which at this point it's hard to evaluate because I don't have full information about the hand, but they chose to evolve the T-time, and it's about time we had enough this group. Get out of here.
Yeah, he's going away. Now here you kind of want to find, you're getting close to that point in the game where you want either a Ginger or you want your Abomination Awakens just to start clearing the board again, just to present a big threat.
And this is where Neutral Room just starts shining. They have access to their illusionists, their actors, everything's online, and Avon is out of Evos. They went first, which is unfortunate. They with their hand cards like Priest of the Cudgel, Serenian Hide, you have the tempo necessary to come back, so you just want that value of the Evo Orbs.
So Jean won't clear everything. It'll do some good damage to the Hector, but it'll still live as a 4-1. Cudgel doesn't really do anything. You're at the point where you're playing as Haven, you're out of evolves, and you don't really have ways to grab the board back completely. You don't have your big endgame bombs. You're really far away from winning this matchup too. Your opponent's at 17 health. They have a whole bunch of they have Zeus's, they have Israfils, and they're ready to just take over the board.
Yeah, acknowledging that they choose not to go for the John, they choose just to cycle because they realize that this hand is not going to be capable of doing much so far.
Yeah, and 3 Johns, about as helpful as 2 Johns were in this situation. So I imagine we'll see some card draw. Maybe we'll see that Mysterian Grimoire just to try to dig for your win condition, to dig for your Ginger.
Especially with Moria and Encomium proccing, I think you're just gonna want to go wide, want to get rid of the small followers so that they may be the target of Moria and Encomium as well as just drawing cards. So I expect to see a Paradise Vanguard and probably trade the 4-1 into the 4-4, 3-4. I mean, because she's not very strong against the Light John.
Yeah,
but they could also go face, but I think it's still too healthy. CPV has too much health for a face push.
Yeah, I don't think there's any real reason to push that 4 damage to face, because you do know you're grinding your opponent out of resources. You have so many in your hands, and you're also in the aggressive position. You're in the dominant position, so there's no real reason to get too antsy and try to push face damage too early when it could cost you the game.
They got that Snow White. That Snow White is strong, is resilient. It costs a lot of resources. It also procs the turtle, so you can attack with it. So I expect this Keishi and his friends to not even try to deal with that Snow White. Just ignore it. Possibly see an Israfil here and even trade.
I would like to just see a tempo Israfil here. Just Israfil and pass.
Would you trade or would you? I would just go face, set up lethal.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I would go face, just play the Israfil and pass. I mean, you could even evolve the Israfil. There's no real. You don't really have to not do it, but if you do evolve the Israfil, You actually proc that Snow White, and you give the turtle the ability to
Yeah,
attack next turn.
you're essentially giving more stats to your opponent than the ones you cleared. So this is also okay. They're so far ahead that they can get away with this play, but this is by far to me the weakest one.
It seems like they want to just set up and just keep the board clear, and then just set up with an Alpha Strike once they draw their Ginger.
Because the scary part to me is that what if so you're out of Evos, right? What if Avon from the amulet just gets Moria, Encomium, and Carinian, right? That would just completely blow your board away, and that would put a lot of pressure on you because you just spent your evolve point on it. I would have liked to see them being a bit more aggressive. It's one of those situations where you need to shift the gear and realize that you're putting so much pressure on your opponent that they need to start doing the cleanup job. And when you're playing a tempo deck, a mid-range deck, when you have to do cleanup, that's not where you want to be. You want to keep the pressure always, always, always on your side.
Yeah, and actually, one thing with that Runecraft deck that I've experienced is once they get to that late game, even if they were somehow able to deal with that Israfil, they had that Illusionist. So the moment they played the Illusionist, it's bringing back an Israfil. It's basically like Saha combo.
Essentially. This is why we see Ginger being more popular because it's one of those control decks. It's one of the first control decks that we're seeing this expansion in the sense that it has all the late game tools available to stabilize and be aggressive. Shift the gear, I guess. Turn one shift up. Just win the game very fast. Kind of what Ram Dragon usually does, and so the meta is so popular with mid-range decks like Haven, like Sword, like Forest, even Ginger Rune seems to be one of the strongest, and I expect it to do very well tomorrow.
Ginger Rune, I think, is one of the decks I think I'm most scared of tomorrow.
Yeah, comprehensible.
Just its ability to set up that board that once they play that Ginger and once they set up that board, it's very hard to just do anything to stop it. You're usually dead the moment they play that.
And we didn't even see Ginger last game. Imagine if they had Ginger on 9 instead of that Israfil. That would just be mind crushing for Haven. There's no Themis Decree. There's no Bahamut. It's just game over. If they manage, the only way you can beat Ginger seems to be just to go under it, just to be put a lot of pressure before they get to turn 9.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. There's really not many other ways to clear it. And another thing that's scary about Ginger is if you're playing against Ginger and you're on the draw, you have even less time to take them out because they're gonna get to their Ginger turn one turn before you would have gotten to your turn 9.
Yeah. Also, they're actors, they're illusionists, they're abominations. Everything just. Fortunately for you, since they go first, they draw one less card for that abomination play.
This
But
Momo is
still,
or not Momo, but this Lancer is about to blow
Lancer.
them out. Both would have done the job pretty well.
This is the strengths of going first in this matchup is that you're capable of doing plays like these. But on the other hand, if we get to see a Priest of the Cudgel, Avon is very comfortable from that position.
Instead, we're gonna see a Heavenly Aegis. So maybe we just see a Black Inscripture here or Snow White. The thing about Snow White is you're gonna get kind of wrecked again by that second Momo or the second Lancer.
I would I know I'm crazy, but I would have maybe Moria Encomium just because I see this game slowly and slowly they're chipping my health, so I recognize that I will have to eventually kill their entire board and develop my own board, because by doing this you're just allowing your sword opponent to play follower, hit face, play follower, hit face, play follower, hit face. Yeah, you would have taken 3 extra damage, but that Moria Encomium on turn 5 would help you to finally destroy the entire board.
Well, we might see this Sky Commander Celia get played here. So
Yep.
if we do see this guy Commander Celia, that Morai really would be kind of weak, having a 50% chance of hitting a 1/1 or a 1/2.
But it would be stronger than what you have at your disposal now, because that
Mhm.
1/1 is still gonna be very annoying to deal with.
Yeah, it's you would
Killing that 1/1 would allow you to kill the 5/3. So think of it this way: the Moriam Encomium could have possibly either killed the 5/3 or the 1/1.
wow.
So sometimes I like to take extra damage if I realize that I will just slowly get out of this game, right? I need to take some risks when you're this far behind.
That was just an instant concession. Just recognizing that they're so far behind so early into the game, they're probably not going to be able to get back in. I would have liked to see that game go at least for a couple more turns, though. I think things looked pretty grim, but I don't think it was completely over yet.
I think they just realized that Moria Encomium was very slow, so they would have not even killed not the Mars, not even killed the Celia and the Lancer of the Tempest. So they were gonna take 8 damage, and the problem is that their hand was not suitable for dealing with multiple bodies. So even if your sword opponent had nothing to play, just past the turn, they still had 3 bodies that you could deal with again, just one at a time.
Yeah, by playing the Snow White on turn 2 and by getting just absolutely blown out by the Lancer into the Hedgehog trade, maybe they would have been better off playing the Morai on that turn or playing the Black
Yes.
Inscription on that turn as well.
I am of that opinion. Yes,
Hmm.
when you're playing against a sword deck that has access to Momo, like you mentioned, or Lancer of the Tempest, you just run into the risk of just losing the game. When you think about it, playing Moriam Encomium would just you would just take in an extra damage. It's not that big of a deal in this matchup. I think.
You have to be very careful the first couple turns you're playing against Sword because they do have a lot of powerful options that they can go for. And if you don't play around them correctly, you can just lose the game because you just go too far behind in tempo. And they're a deck that wants to take the game pretty long since they have their Arthurs and their Skyships. So if they're able to get complete board dominance in the early game, it's very hard for you to come back.
Yeah. The scenario I described, I am no I know very well. It's very well stuck to my mind because I played a lot of Sword and I've inflicted that pain to my opponents. They always thought they were clearing my boards, but they were always keeping a board on a body alive, which allowed me to kill their board, play another follower, deal 2 damage, deal 2 damage, play another follower. They just keep clearing, 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 and I'm just slowly pushing enough damage so that Sky Fortress or Arthur is just the nail in the coffin. Anyways, that matchup just went, and we see now that we have a mirror. What do you feel about the mirror?
I think Moon Almirage should be favored because she's the better leader. What do you think?
I agree. I
Okay.
agree. I hate Eris. I dislike her a lot. I was hoping for even leader for like 2 expansions because I was tired of playing Eris. Finally, Moonal Mirage is what I needed, and funny enough, I didn't have Moonal Mirage before Hamina came, and now I have 3 Raminas. Yaka, go Aka.
Yeah, now you have your playset. So this is a really awkward turn. You're walking right into your opponent's cudgel. That cudgel's gonna be able to grab that Snow White, and if you just tempo play your cudgel, or no matter what you play here, you're just gonna get kind of blown out. If you pass, you might just see a tempo evolve on the cudgel just to get rid of the Snow White.
I like Blackened Scripture to set up my Moriai, make my Moriai more effective for the next turn. If you play the Priest of the Cudgel, their Priest of the Cudgel will be able to clear your board, then maybe Moriai just snipes that 1/1. I hope they don't get punished, but it might happen.
Yeah, and there's the cudgel.
And now it's a 50-50 of being very far behind when they didn't need to be in this situation. Again, Keishi and their friends seem to not be thinking too much into the future, but it's still okay. They still have that Blackened Scripture for the 4/3.
Yeah, I think holding on to the Black Inscripture actually worked out pretty nicely because they are able to get rid of the cudgel here, but they can't develop anything now if they do this.
That's what I was gonna say. You were still spending play points that you didn't need to spend, right? because that Moriai would have done that job. Imagine if you had played the Black Scripture the previous turn, you would be able to play the Karinian here on an empty board, or you Priest of the Cudgel,
This
not
is
needing to evolve. Yeah.
this is gonna be a pretty nice tea time. I think you're gonna be able to set up a 5/6, get the tea time started. Overdrawing their Godsworn Alexiel. It's an interesting tech card.
We're seeing it just as a one-off because that passive is very strong when you think about it. When you see cards like Heavenly Knight, like Sky Fortresses, those cards are very popular in the meta, and it just allows you. Ooh, look at the tech card. Speaking of tech cards,
Hold on.
one-off IT. Yes,
So,
off the top.
This said, I always thought you needed the Evolve follower to be yours. It just
Oh,
wow that
evolve enemy follower.
that actually put in some serious work. That was a great top deck. That actually it brought him kind of back into this game now. How often-
Yeah, now it's very difficult because it's do they have any? Probably need to evolve again, and that's the last Evo.
Yeah, you can go with the Morai and the Pegasus Dual Hound if you want. It's also another. You can take a slow turn here, take a little bit of damage. You can set up both Morais and the Gemstone Carapace too if you'd want, but that's a really slow. That's going real slow. But you can catch back up with the Priest of the Cudgel that you have in your hands, or the Tea Time.
I do like the setup of Moriai. We don't see Kalinian in the end. So that Moriai needs to come up to stop the Heavenly Knight. Because as of now, you don't have a good option for their Heavenly Knight.
Okay, so they're going with the Cudgel and the Carapace. Maybe hoping they draw into the Serenian Hind so that they can just instant pop it off the Morai.
Oh, they have Karinian?
No, they don't. The bottom team has the Serenian Hind.
Okay, got it. Moriai is one of those cards that, to me, is just not being fully explored yet. It's one of those complicated cards to play with and play around. And as the meta progresses, I think that card will be masterfully played, and you will see turns being denied by that card.
Yeah, it's
Has a lot of potential.
It's a lot like how Tribunal was, but the difference is you don't get the first kill the moment you play it, so you have to play it with a lot of foresight.
It reminds me of turn 6 Tempo Tribunal, which was one of my favorite cards and just showed how much expertise one had with his Aegis deck, because that would allow you to play your Aegis with less pressure on turn 9. So again, Moriai is, if they played Moriai the previous turn, they would possibly block an Heavenly Knight on the turn after for Keishi and their friends.
So looking at Keishi and friends' hand, they have both their cudgels. It's a little awkward. It's not super effective on this board, especially since they don't have any Evos. They're just gonna have to tempo play those out as 3/4s at some point. Their hand is a lot weaker than CPVs, for instance. They have 8 cards. They have both their Heavenly Knights. They have their Aether that they can use to dig for their Aegis if the game gets long enough.
This Karinian, though, it's gonna get a lot of value
Mm-hmm.
because it's not a clash effect. Every time it attacks, you're just gaining more and more card advantage, and it's not easy for Aven to deal with such a healthy follower.
This Pegasus Dual Hand is gonna get banished so fast.
Let's see, that's a lot of damage. We're looking at 14 damage. They're 5 damage off lethal. So Heavenly Knight would be a very strong play in my opinion, because your Raven opponent cannot kill Heavenly Knight and Karinian.
So you think that's
They go for it.
You think that's what we're gonna see? They can.
It runs the.
If they go straight face here, and their opponents can just answer with a Heavenly Knight of their own. They can go double trades and then Heavenly Knight.
Yes, that is a possibility. Also, Karinian from CPV side would be below. If it blew on the Heavenly Knight, that would also be devastating. So they chose to go for the gemstone.
I like this line. setting up a pretty wide board.
Uh, Also, the previous turn, another consideration to play the Heavenly Knight is that CPB would need Heavenly Knight and Summit Temple because they didn't have Summit Temple yet on the board. So I think that would be a winning play. CPV only basically needed 2 cards to prevent lethal, and it would be very difficult from that position.
So now you're actually
Ooh.
under a lot of pressure because if you lose this 50-50, you're just out of Heavenly Knight now. Well, it's actually a 33% if you go with the Jeweled Priestess.
Yeah. I think you go for the Black Diamond too. Yeah.
So they're just digging for a couple more points of damage here.
Oh, this is spans, so...
Yeah, so how do you deal with this if you're CPV?
They would need their own Summit Temple.
Yeah, and they don't have the Summit Temple.
They don't even have a way to keep their Heavenly Knight Storm without committing their entire play points, so it's going to be very difficult. That's the only option, unless they go with Heavenly Knight and just pass the turn, but that would just be asking for losing to any removal spell.
Even if they're able to clear all of this, or even if they're able to clear the Heavenly Knight, I don't think they're going to be able to clear that Jeweled Priestess out. And that Jeweled Priestess is going to push 2 damage, and that 2 damage is going to be just enough for that Black Diamond to seal it off. It's going to put him on a real clock.
Yeah, and these Aven lists are not running any sort of healing. They're rotating for that for a more aggressive option. This has become a really interesting game. We saw both tech cards, IT, really shining on that turn 6.
Okay.
Possibly CPV didn't expect that blowout because they maybe are not as familiar with it.
This works pretty nicely, but look at that. That's the second Jeweled Priestess. So how do you deal with this Heavenly Knight now? You don't really have too
Play
many
your
ways
own
to.
Ether, yeah. Play your own Ether, the White Wing. Yep, and then you can even.
But
Would you pass with Black Diamond? I don't think so.
I
I think
want
the 3/5 is more important than yeah, the 7/5 I mean is more important than the Black Diamond.
so the 7. They're not under enough pressure where they can die here yet. This is a very interesting game.
Yeah, there's the second Heavenly Knight too, so it's gonna be tough.
So if you were betting Manaka, which side do you think is ahead here?
I would have to favor the Aegis side.
Hold on.
Because
there was just a John Beacon of Salvation pulled off the top of that from that Morai. Do you think that changes things?
Let's see the clock. That's 479. That's 9 plus 9 is 18. So that is a clock. And Aegis would need 2 turns to connect to face. So I think CPV is favored from this position. The clock, that's math, dude. Oh. I see.
So they're just boarding up. They're just saying, I'm going to build the best wall I can possibly build. I want to not take damage. And they're just going to try to clean up the board every single turn.
This is incorrect, though. Because you're not speeding the clock. You now establish 3 turns to win the game. And in 3 turns, Aegis can win the game. So you were 1 turn ahead of your opponents. Now you're 1 turn behind.
Yeah, so I think here you just got to slam the Jeweled Priestess and both those Black Diamonds and just get them active as soon as possible.
I disagree. I think you would go wide because your opponent has showed you that they want to keep clearing your board. They don't want to push face damage, so I just go wide. Just play Tea Time and double Cudgel, or maybe Tea Time and Cudgel.
I think
because your opponent cannot ward longer than you can actually win the game.
Yeah, it's difficult because the more you trade, the more time you're giving your opponent. But I think I still like setting up the black diamonds because not only you're putting them on this clock where they have to deal with all of your Aegis and they have to keep warding up, they now have to figure out how they kill you in 2 turns,
But they have lethal. If they have a third Heavenly Knight, they
which
win the game.
which they do.
They win the game. So we saw both teams actually throwing their turn clock by doing that. Wait, ooh, okay.
We're seeing the Aegis get slammed here.
Yeah, that's probably even better. Yeah. So we just saw the two teams throwing their waste to win. Imagine if they have double cudgel, right? Or
Easy game.
oh, okay, never mind. Never mind what I just said. Doesn't matter. Both teams just get draws. But this is a really cool game to videotape and discuss actually,
Yeah, there's a lot of
because
lines going on here.
there's a lot of turn clocks involvement. I believe that CPV was ahead when you asked me to bet because they were 1 turn ahead. I believe the clock was in their favor, and then they threw away that clock, and then Keishi and their friends didn't acknowledge they were ahead on that clock, so they just went for the 2 diamonds, which made them 1 turn behind again because the diamonds take 2 turns, and you just spent 1 turn by playing the 2 diamonds. So yeah, these are the games that I love to watch. By the way,
Yeah, this was a clutch game.
this is a game that I go to bed and I'm just like thinking and thinking about it, and more I think about it, the more and more I like it. Because so imagine you have a tea time and 2 cudgels. Your opponent could not